Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Rich Parsons with Higher Calling Consulting here in Colorado Springs. I just want to take a moment to first off say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to invest in your family. Thank you for choosing to find out what you can do to create the best family environment that you possibly can. And thank you for taking time this morning when you really didn't have to get up and to share in this opportunity. And for those who have kids joining in on this with you, I just want to say good morning, kids, and thank you for getting up and for taking part in this with your parents. I think that this is going to be a great opportunity for you, and I'm glad that you're able to do this with your parents. So, as we move into this lesson, I just want to share a couple things with you before we get started. And, I really feel that the title for this presentation is very fitting. Family Stressed to Family Best, especially during this time, because as we're going through and just finished up a school year that ended as we would have never expected it to end, our summers or our summer activities have been halted a bit. We haven't been able to get out and do as much as we would normally do. Our kids haven't been able to enjoy some of the activities that they would normally be enjoying, which means that oftentimes our kids are at home more than they normally would. And it's not a bad thing that is uh, that's happening, but at the same time, it also creates a different atmosphere, a different environment. And so that creates stress at times. We're already stressed about so many things that are going on in life, and to add this to it can just be that one more thing that we don't necessarily know how to deal with, or maybe sometimes even want to deal with. But I'm glad you're here today because this is going to be a valuable lesson to help parents connect with their kids. And I'll say that kids, as we go through this, when you see or read something that sounds like you and your behaviors and kind of how you act, tug on your parent's shirt and let them know that, hey, that's me. And don't be surprised if kids and parents, if you see multiple behaviors in your child. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It just means that they are just like every human being. We all have different aspects of each style within us, and they just come out in stronger ways for those that are more of our predominant primary behavioral style. So just wanted to share that with you. And parents, this is going to be a learning opportunity for you as well. You're not you're not going to see anything here that is only going to be for your kids, because the behavioral styles, what you're going to see, the traits, the stress signals, the motivators, the ways to speak into giftedness, they're the same for all humans. And it's just important for us to know about our kids so that we can connect with them and help them be more successful. And that's really the primary goal: successful kids and the best family unit possible. All right, so now I'd like to just share a little bit about who I am, and then we'll get into the lesson. So as I mentioned already, my name's Rich Parsons, and that's my mugshot on the right there. And I retired here in December of 2018, right here in Colorado Springs, after 27 years of service. And I can tell you that throughout my career, I had the opportunity to meet some amazing people. I also had the opportunity to not only raise my own kids in the military family, but be around a lot of other military kids as well as kids that were in our communities. But family is an important thing for the military, just as I'm sure it is for everybody else. But one of the things that I noticed within the military community is that, we, as military members, when we go away, be it to school or training, an exercise or a deployment, or possibly even an assignment where we're away from our family, it's our family members that are left behind to deal with everyday life. Our life goes on as the military member. We go in our own direction, but it's our spouses, our partners, significant others that are left behind, and oftentimes with kids. And that creates some challenges at times. So that's one of the things that I focused on as I progressed in my career was to really connect in with the families and to know what's going on with the family unit, because what's happening at home affects what's going on in every other aspect of life. So I felt that that was an area that was of extreme importance, and I'm not the only one that feels that way. But speaking of family, I'm married and I have two boys. Both of my boys are a bit older. One joined the Navy a couple years ago after he graduated high school, and so he's been in the Navy for 2 years. And my youngest son, he just graduated this year, and he's actually in the process of going through enlisting in the Navy. And if all goes as planned, would be probably leaving here in a couple months at the latest. But I couldn't convince either one of them to go the Air Force route, but that's okay because I understand if they want to chart their own path and make their own way in the service and not necessarily follow in Dad's footsteps. But I'm just really proud of them for serving their country and for the choices they've made and the young men that they're becoming. So why I do what I do, and it really comes down to helping other people, and that's what I feel to be my higher calling. And that's why I named my business Higher Calling Consulting, because I feel that my calling, the calling on my life, is to help people, to help families grow, to help individuals grow, and that happens in context of the home. It happens in context of our social relationships and also in our business, our work environments. Because I feel that if we are better as individuals, we're going to be able to function more effectively in every other aspect of life. So that's why I focus on helping people grow to be the best that they can possibly be. And that's exactly why I'm offering this today, because I want everybody to be the best that they can possibly be. And so, enough about me. Let's go ahead and start diving into the reason why you're here today, and that is to learn how to function effectively as a family and to be the best family unit that you possibly can. Now, if you're anything like me, if you think about other families and maybe you see how other families are interacting, what we see oftentimes is not always what's happening. So we look at families and we think what's going on in their home, and maybe we picture everybody as being happy and peaceful and just being loving to one another. Well, then reality hits. The reality is that although those things may be happening on a rather frequent basis, it may not be the case all the time. There are challenges in families, and that is because no two people are alike. And when you get into families with multiple members, and the more people that are in a home, that means there's more behaviors, more personalities that have to be dealt with. So what I ask you to do is, look at your family, look at the relationships that you have with your immediate family and those around you, and just kind of take those rose-colored glasses off. Uh, allow yourself to see things as they really are for just a little bit. Take the blinders off and see what is truly happening within the dynamic of your family and the dynamic of the relationships that are involved in your life and those that feed into your family. All right. So if you do that, you're going to get so much more out of this. So that's my encouragement to you: is take the blinders off and really absorb the content that's coming today, because this can be a real game changer for many people. And anyway, I'm just glad you're here to be able to do this. All right, so let's kind of move on a little bit, and we'll get into the styles here in just a moment. So what I want to kind of highlight on this photo here is that, you know, this mother, I guarantee you this is not what she intended for her morning or her afternoon. Now, we as adults, we have plans, we have things that we want to do in our life and in our day, but that oftentimes gets impacted by everything else that is going on around us. You know, we want to help our children grow. We want to help them become vibrant and to be the best that they can be and express themselves. But sometimes we don't really know what it is that's going on, and how that interaction takes place within our family um, can be challenging. So the reality is that, you know, we have schoolwork, we have playtime, we have trying to get work done around the house and have to go to work. There's so much stuff going on that we often lose sight of what's really happening on a day-to-day basis. Now, if we were together in a setting face to face, you know, I would have people share some of their reality, some of their stories that where things don't always go as you have had it planned, because there's a good learning experience in that. And I think as we go through this lesson, through this presentation, you're going to maybe start to see why things happen the way they do. And I'm quite certain, you know, this mother here, and who knows, maybe there's some parents out there that have the fake swords that they get clubbed over the head with periodically. But you know, again, I'm sure this isn't exactly what she had planned for her morning or afternoon. But the reality is this happens, and each of these kids right here, including the mother in the middle, uh, they all have different behaviors. They all have different personalities that have to be dealt with. And that doesn't change when we get older. You know, as our children grow, uh, the more that we're able to connect with them and to recognize their behaviors and their styles, it just increases our ability to figure out who they really are. So, what I'm going to share with you today is a way to recognize some of the behavior characteristics in your child, the ones that are in their areas of strength, and the characteristics that could indicate that they're under pressure, some of those stress signals, and also some of the motivator, a motivator for each of the styles, and then also a way to connect using loving, encouraging statements that connect with their giftedness. Because when we connect with our children at their giftedness and highlight the strengths, it just builds confidence. It builds a positive um, uh, deposit within them. And, you know, it's like if you've ever heard of a love bank, you know, you can add to a love bank. You can add to those positive things. You can build up your bank account, if you will, with those positive, encouraging statements. And that's true in relationships, it's true with our kids in developing them as who they are, their self esteem, their self worth. And that oftentimes shapes everything through the rest of their life. And that's pretty important. And that's where we as parents come in to the vital role of being responsible for that. And kids, for those that are here and listening, you have a responsibility in this too, and that is to communicate with your parents, to let them know uh, what's going on and help them understand you so that it's not always guesswork. Because when you can do that, you can express yourself and your parents work with you to connect and communicate. That just creates a better environment for everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into the first personality style, the D, and we'll discuss some of those behaviors. So when you look at the the personality, the disc model. So we have four styles. The D, which is the dominant, decisive type. The I is going to be the inspirational, the influencer. S is going to be the steady, sustained kind of person. And C is going to be more of the compliant, controlled type of person. And I'll get into each one of those, but the very first one that we'll look at is what would be the D style. Excuse me. And these behaviors right here are not just for kids. These are behaviors that you will see in people, in children, in human beings from early age on into adulthood. Now, obviously, as we're looking at school age kids here, you may see some of this growing or in a child as they are in their younger years, but as they get into school age years, you start to see more of this as they interact with other people. And and you've probably identified these traits at some point in your kids, or maybe kids, you've identified them within yourself, or you see them in yourself, adults, and in other people. So for the D style, these are individuals, these are kids, humans that are kind of that born leader. They're very dynamic, decisive. They want to get things done, and they look for solutions to things, and then they just want to act on them. So these styles, if there's something that is of an emergency, or there's a problem situation going on. You think of, this style being a firefighter, a police officer, maybe somebody in the military, or somebody in a situation where they have more responsibility and they need to react in a time of crisis. And you'll see that this behavior style is perfect for that time, for that situation. Now, one thing that I'll just kind of share a story real quick is there was a gentleman that I had interviewed here not too long ago, and he was telling me about uh, his childhood. And he said that when he was a kid, at the age of 11 or 12, he knew that he was a leader. And he knew that because when it came to doing anything, he was the one. It was his house that the kids came to, or if they were out somewhere, they all relied on him to determine what they were going to be doing, what game they played, where they were going to ride their bikes. He got them to work in the local neighborhood, raking leaves, cutting grass, so they could save money to buy video games to play. And he was just that natural leader at a young age, and he had that dynamic personality. And that is something that he has seen throughout his whole life. So many times our kids, when they maybe they don't realize it at an early age, but as they look back on it, And I look back on some of my childhood experiences and I see where some of my personality, my behavior traits were more apparent now that I look back on them. And I imagine parents that you do the same. So kids, as you look at this, if any of these are things that are you, or maybe you don't understand what a word means, ask your parent, ask the adult in the room, and they'll explain it to you. But if you see any of these, this is likely one of your behavior traits. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have others, but there may be one or two on here that are exactly you. And you're going to see that once I go through all of these, parents and kids, you're going to see that there are some that are probably more predominant than others, and that will be likely your primary and perhaps your secondary style. So we know what the behaviors are of this style. So let's take a look at what some of those stress signals are. So as we look at the stress signals, this is this is an indication that, if this style is under pressure, these are things that you may see happening. The resistance being, strong-willed. Some people are just super strong-willed anyway, so you're going to see that all the time. But that is, if there's something that's creating some pressure for them, they're going to be very insistent on how things take place and the steps that are taken or the activities that are carried out. They may be resistant to the change or to whatever it is that's going on because it goes against what they believe. I think of myself when I was a kid, as I imagine many kids are at various times, there's a rebellious side in us. So that doesn't mean that it couldn't be in every single kid, every personality style, but this is a trait that comes more with the behaviors that we're talking about here. And so, when a kid or when an adult becomes demanding or controlling over a situation, it's because something's being threatened and that this is how they act or try to control that situation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing unless it creates negative outcomes. But the important thing here is to know what it is that's happening and why. When you know why something's happening, you're able to do something about it. So that's why it's important to know the stress signals and know that this is an indication that there's something going on that's creating pressure, that's creating an internal challenge to their primary behavioral style. And again, this is true for kids and adults. All humans have these exact same things. So there's ways to get beyond this. So let's talk about what a motivator would be, as well as how to speak into their giftedness. So the motivator for this style, for the D style, if you will, is to give them an opportunity to be in charge of something. Give them an opportunity to lead a family expedition. Maybe they're the ones that lead the hiking trip, or they're going to decide where you go for an activity or dinner, or what game's going to be played. Any number of things. You can really find great opportunities to motivate when you speak the right language, when you're speaking into one of those primary behaviors. So if there's a chance where, they want to not just be in control of something, but, to make that decision or to organize something and put things together. Maybe it is giving them the opportunity to have maybe a little more freedom in something and to just kind of see how that decision process works. Those are great motivators. And then really to connect to their giftedness, these are some statements that you can use. But really, if you look at any of the behaviors that were listed on that first slide, you can come up with a positive statement that speaks directly to that. And it can be, any of these three, or it could be something else, but speak to the behavior because that is the giftedness. And make sure you're speaking to, what's there, because if it's not there and you speak to it, then it's going to be kind of a wasted thing. So, for instance, I like that you're very confident in yourself. That is something that if we want to encourage our children to be confident and in their behaviors and in their actions and just their self-esteem, their self-worth, this is a great way to do it. We want our children to be confident because that's a trait that's going to help them in many, many aspects of life. And there are some other personality traits that could need a boost of confidence just based off of their behavior styles. And we'll talk about those here in just a moment. So something like, I like that you set your mind to something and you go after it. I like that you're committed and decisive. And you can kind of elaborate on that and give examples of things. And that just helps solidify that, one, you recognize traits within your kid and that you're giving them a positive affirmation, a positive comment to help boost that up. And, you can use this also to, if there's maybe a negative aspect of things, not focusing on the negative, but picking out the positive from that. It's like, I don't appreciate this, but I really like it when you do this. And, just talk about how that makes them more effective and more appealing and just a better person to be around, and how people enjoy that. So these are some styles, the behaviors, the stress signals, the motivator, and some connecting statements that you can use for what would be the kind of the D style. So let's go ahead and take a look at the I, the one that's the influencer, the inspirational person. Now, for this personality, this behavior style, you're going to see things like the kid, the adult, anybody. The person's outgoing. They like to get involved and volunteer for jobs. They're the ones that have all the friends come over to their house, or they're just the social butterfly in any social situation. But they also can be a bit more emotional in how they carry themselves, and that can be emotional in a really good way, uh, dealing with passion and their drive for something, and it could be emotional in more of a heartfelt kind of way. But either way, the emotion is there. They're very passionate about what they're doing. They can be inspirational. You find that a lot of people that are the inspirational speakers, the real connectors in the crowd, and they just have the ability to just inspire people to do great things and to rally people around stuff. That this could very easily be uh, your kid. And maybe there's a child today that's looking at this and saying, that is me. And it as a parent that that is your child. And that's good because that means you recognize these things. For me, I focus on this last one here, the talkative aspect. And, I was a pretty high energy, talkative kid. And I would say that that hasn't changed a whole lot through my life. I'm still pretty high energy and pretty talkative. My primary style is a D. And then my next are the I and the C. And so I have a lot of these traits within my personality style and who I am. Excuse me. And you'll see the creative side coming out in these individuals. And you'll see this in another uh, personality behavior style as well. So these are the behaviors for somebody who is more of that influencer, that inspirational person. And this is a pretty um, popular, or it's not as popular as one of the other styles, but you'll see that this right here, compared, the D and the I make up not as much of the population as you might think. But that it takes a little bit of everything to make the world go round. So let's take a look at some of those stress signals, some of the things that indicate that this style, this person could be under pressure. So for the stress signals for this style, uh, if you see that there's a hyperactivity going on because they're already high energy, but maybe there's just more activity going on, or becoming very impatient with things. Maybe that emotional side of them is coming out to where they're getting a little louder, they're getting a little more vocal, a little more boisterous in their display of emotion. Perhaps there's they need to seek attention, and that's not always going to be the positive side. I can think of instances even with my own kids, and I'll tell you that I wish I would have had this stuff in my arsenal and had the ability to do a success report with my kids when they were growing up, because it would have created some changes in our family dynamic. I know it would have, because I would have seen a little more and been able to put something to what was going on with my kids. But I know of times where, if that attention wasn't uh, there, or there was something going on, that even the negative attention was in their mind better than no attention. If there was something going on with schooling or with grades or whatever, it's almost like, the attention that came from getting maybe in trouble for a bad grade, or a lack of effort on something, was it was attention, and that wasn't always the best way to go about it. And again, those emotional displays, this really goes in line with the fact that they're emotional beings. So when you see these things happening, again, this is an indication that there's pressure. There's something that is challenging their primary behaviors. There's something that's going on that needs to be um, discovered a little more. So this is a good cue as a parent or as a person connecting with another person to know what to look for, and then ways to deal with this, and ways to dig a little deeper to come up with a positive outcome. So let's take a look at the motivator and some of the connecting statements that can be used. So a motivator for this style is to give them an opportunity to socialize, to talk, to maybe have them uh, give, you know, a rundown of a book that they read, or to tell about something that they did for the day, or have them just engaged, because they like to connect and be engaged with people and to socialize. This can also work as kind of a motivator, in that if a person is maybe they're a very social individual, but they've done something that isn't in alignment with what they should have done, and restricting some of that social activity could help, um, could be a part of the conversation that takes place, where if you want to do such and such, I need you to do this. And you can use the socialization, the connection with people, to kind of spur on and be that positive side of things. And this could also be used in a not so great way, where it becomes a negative thing. You don't want it to be a negative motivator, but something that gives them that positive outcome. And some statements you can use are things like, "I like that you're fun to be with." Typically this personality style is, they're fun to be around because they're active and they're humorous, and they just have so much to offer that they're just fun to be with. And I'm sure as adults, you know people that are exactly like this. They're just fun to be around. And, oftentimes that friendliness that they have is something that can be spoken into. Their enthusiasm. Have you ever been around a person that just their charisma, their energy, everything about them is positive and it's contagious, and people like to be around that. So those are things that you can say, as well as look back at those behavior traits again and find statements that feed into those ones that are applicable. That's going to help you connect with your child or connect with a person that has this style as their predominant behaviors. That this is really what makes up their personality. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the S within the DISC model. With the S, this is that steady state kind of person, and you'll find that they're easygoing. They definitely have balance. They may be quiet, but it doesn't mean that they don't have anything to say or that they're not smart and witty. They're just a little more reserved. They may be agreeable, good listeners. They're the ones that people want to go to when there's a problem. They go to to this style because they're going to listen, because they have compassion and they want to be kind of that support network for others. And that's why they help and they look out for other people, because they are compassionate, they're reliable, they're dependable, they're like that friend that's always there. And when I see this, this is where my wife is at. My wife is a very high S. These behaviors, they describe her very well. I am a high D, and so that can be a little challenging at times, because it's, you talk about opposites attract. That's exactly what the D and the S is. But as I mentioned before, we have some of all of these within us. And even though my S is pretty low in category, or in number, it doesn't mean that I can't display this. And for those kids that are listening, if this is you, this doesn't mean that you're only an S, that you're only able to do these things and that you can't do anything else, because you're going to have some of every trait, some of every style within you. It's just going to be that some are more predominant than others, and you are going to function and act within what your predominant style is. And that's okay. We all have a predominant style. So, kids, if this is you, let your parents know which one of these describes you the best. And if your parents need to help describe something to you, if you don't understand what it is, they can do that. But these are the traits of somebody who is in kind of the S lane. And they also have stress signals as well. So I'd like to share those with you. So the stress signals for the S style is when they are under pressure, when there's something going on and they feel threatened. This is where they may be submissive and just kind of give in, or maybe they're stubborn and they just stand their ground, because that security side of things is important to them. That the stubbornness isn't always a bad thing, because depending on what it is that they're standing up for and what the security is and what their need is, it's not something that they need to cave on or that they should. But you'll see the submissiveness or the stubbornness depending on how much that security is threatened. Perhaps they reach out for relationships even more. Um, they want to, if something's threatening them or they feel uncomfortable, they're likely going to reach out to other people to bring that connectedness back, because that's what they strive for. but that just means that there's likely something going on to where they need that connection. So, when my wife has something going on, she will reach out to her friends, or maybe she'll talk with me about something that's bothering her, or she just wants to be a little closer, or maybe she'll have some girl time and she wants to go out with one of her girlfriends to get something to eat and just talk because she needs that companionship. And this style can also they can go out of their way to keep that peace because I don't want to necessarily there's a phrase that comes to mind is kumbaya. They want things to be good. They want everybody to get along. They don't like the strife and the turmoil that often happens. So they are the people that are going to find the good in things and try to bring a resolution in the most positive way possible because they want people to get along. That's just their style. Now, there's ways you can motivate and connect with this style as well. The motivator is something like where you can emphasize that you need their help on something, or to give an additional boost to their confidence by, kind of giving them affirmation that they have the ability to do something, that you can build their confidence level up and helping them to move into a challenging situation, perhaps where they may doubt themselves. I think of my wife in this, and maybe, you can identify this in your kids or yourself, parents. And that is, for me, like if I'm driving down the road and I want to open my water bottle or get something, a snack, I could easily do it myself, but I know that my wife wants to help me do that. She wants to be able to open the water bottle for me so I can drive more safely. And when I ask her to do that, it makes her feel needed. And it just is something that she needs. She wants to be helpful. And it doesn't mean that I can't do it or that it doesn't diminish my own ability, or it's not a threat to me. I just have to be more mindful of that because my personality style, who I am, is just that I'm just going to do things. And I tend to be a little more individual, solo on some of my activities and actions, whereas I realize I need to bring my wife into the fold more. And that's just about relationship building. And you can do that same thing within your family when you realize that there are things that need to be nurtured, that you can ask for the help and give the S's, give these people with these behavioral styles and behavioral traits, give them an opportunity to be helpful and to boost their confidence and uh, help them feel needed. And that gives them joy, that brings energy to them. And to connect to their giftedness, as I already mentioned, these are caring people. So appreciate that. Show that you really like that your child is so caring. Whether it is caring about, the little animal that was just injured, or caring about another person, or just wanting people to get along. These are things that you can speak life into them by identifying that and making positive comments. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to get along with people. They are compassionate. They are caring. These three things, or these three statements, along with others that feed into those traits, are going to connect. And again, this is for kids and for adults. The way we connect with people is going to be obviously tailored to the person and to kind of the situation, but really there's no change. Human behaviors and the way we feel connected and appreciated are really about the same, but it all comes down to knowing the person and knowing what makes them work, what makes them who they are, and what makes them more effective and what takes away from their effectiveness. And it's our responsibility as adults to find that so that we can connect and we can help our families, our social networks, our businesses, whatever it is, we can help there be more unity. And when we do that, everybody is going to function more effectively. All right, so we've made it through the D, the I, and the S. Now I want to share the last of the styles with you, and that's going to be the C. Now, when you have somebody that's of the C style, if you will, you're going to see that they're a bit more controlled. They're going to be a little more in the compliance side of things. They want things to be right. They seek perfection. They're very detail oriented. They analyze things. They're logical in their thought processes. And they're I can think of myself, I'm very logical. I'll try to make logic out of everything, but I'm not that neat and organized. I used to be, but there's certain things that I still try to be organized on. But but you'll see here that there are certain, if you look at these traits, the behaviors, you see a theme there that they're very mind focused. So the analytical, the logical, detail oriented, deep thinker, uh, they see problems, errors, they pick stuff out and they want to make things right. That is a very mind oriented individual. And you also see here the creative. And I mentioned back in the I style that there's creativity there as well. So, this right here, the I and the C are kind of the exact opposites, where the D and the S are opposites in the quad chart. I is on the top right, a C is on the bottom left. And, whereas the I is really outgoing and interactive, you may see the C's being a little more reserved. And maybe you have the kids that come home that want to go out and be with all their friends. And then you have other kids that come home and they want to go to the room and get their homework done. Well, that is indicative of their personality styles. And so getting homework done can happen anytime for the I's. Getting homework done has to happen now for the C's. And then if there's time, they can hang out with their friends or do something else that is appealing to them. So I would imagine that you see some of these traits in your children. You see these traits in other children around you, their friends. You probably see them in yourself and your friends and your network. Now the C's are the ones that, as they go through life, they're going to, probably focus in on their grades and their studies and getting the best grades they can and having things just perfect. And, I think of myself as I went through school, I was not this way. But as I got older, the C style started coming out a lot more, especially in my grades. And as I grew into adulthood, the compliance side of things, and maybe that was kind of brought on by the military, was a lot more prevalent than it was in my early years. So I say that to say that we can change a bit over time depending on what our environment is and what's around us and our surroundings and what our expectations are. But generally speaking, at the core of it all, throughout life, there are a certain set of traits and behaviors that are always going to be present. And that is where your primary style lies. Throughout my life, the D, the dominant, the decisive side has always been the most prominent. And if you were to do a colors exercise where they have the uh, gold, green, blue, and orange, you're able to see which one lines up with those personality traits. So, and the gold, which is the D, has always been high for me. And it's been between the orange, the I, the green, the C that has always been kind of neck and neck for the second spot for me. But we all have these traits within us. It's just how we utilize them in our daily activities that is important. So just as with all of them, there are some stress signals that we need to look at for this style. The stress signals that we're going to identify for this are where if they're under pressure, if this style, person with these behaviors is under pressure, they're going to be a little more cautious. They're not going to want to be as risky. They're kind of risk averse, especially when they're under pressure, because maybe they haven't thought it out yet. They haven't made logical sense of what's going on. So they don't want to take that risk. Perhaps they become more critical. They find, when you look at the critical and they become very technical, this could be where that perfectionism, finding the problems and the errors come out, and they see, they start looking for those things that are wrong because based off of their behavioral traits, they are in conflict in some way. Maybe they become a little more pessimistic than they normally would be. And that could be because of the analytical or the logical side of things is really kind of in conflict. Maybe they're not seeing things as positively or optimistically as they could because something is causing stress for them. And perhaps because they want to be right, they look to blame others. And you'll see this in the first style, the D, as well as you'll see that blame kind of starts going other places perhaps. And that these are all indications that there's some pressure. There's a conflict somewhere within their being. What it is that makes them tick is being challenged. So therefore they're showing stress and they're acting it out in these ways. Now when you see this, it's just a matter of learning it and knowing how to address the issue in an effective way so that you can move on to a positive connection and better communication. And one of the ways you can do that is through a motivator. Now, as you motivate them, you may do things like give them an opportunity to do some research, maybe to analyze something. Which of these do you think would be the best? And have them kind of look into that or make a decision on something. Ask them questions because this style thrives on details. They thrive on information because then they can make decisions and they can use that to kind of get that logical brain going, that deep thinking that they're accustomed to. So that's a great way to motivate somebody with this style, with these behaviors. And then to connect to their giftedness, again, find those behaviors and look at positive statements that feed into each one of them. But these are three that you could use. I like how you always try to do your best. That's that detail oriented, the perfectionism type coming out. I like that you like things to be organized. My wife, she is an organized person. And at best, I may have an organized pile of stuff in multiple places, but she likes to have everything where it goes. She will, one of the happiest moments for her is when I buy her some pocket folders or some little organizer things. That makes her happy. And I appreciate that she's organized because even though it drives me nuts sometimes, it still creates a good environment because it makes her happy. And I do know where things are at most of the time because it's organized. And the last one, I like that you listen to what others say and feel. Now, this right here is because they want to take in information so that they can make decisions based on that. So that's a great way to connect with somebody that has these traits. So we've gone through each of the behavioral styles, the D, the I, the S, and the C. And just as I mentioned early on and throughout, we have some of all of these within us. It doesn't mean that we're void of any of the other styles. We may be a little lower in some areas than others, and we're going to be higher in some areas than we are in others. And that's okay, because what the important part of this is to know what is predominant and know how to address that, to know the behaviors, the stressors, what motivates them, and how we can connect to their giftedness. And when we can do that, whether it's with our kids, with other human beings as adults, in whatever situation we're in, things are going to be much more effective. So when we talk about family stressed to family best, when we can observe and determine and work within these styles and know what our kids and kids knowing about your parents is very important. And I would say for kids, as they get older and they start moving, up into their early mid-teens, things are going to become a little more apparent for them, and there's maybe more understanding. But we can educate our children from an early age to understand their personalities, understand their behaviors, what stresses them, what motivates them, and how to connect to them. And the more effectively we do that in a family environment, it creates a safety net that then can broaden out into our social settings and into later on into our work settings. So this is a very important lesson for everybody to get and to understand. So we've talked about the way to combat the stress signals and to motivate, to connect. And this is a great opportunity, because I think when we're able to really determine it and unlock our child's potential, it sets them up for more success. It sets our family up for success, and it impacts them where they're able to connect with people, their friends, they're able to connect in their family, and in other situations, it's almost like a natural thing. And the more natural it is, the better things are going to be, because we understand strengths, we understand behaviors, we understand stressors, and we understand what motivates people. And one of the things that I think is very important here is, and I just want to talk with you a little bit about a great opportunity that you can dive deeper into this, and that is with a student success report. So we've talked about all these styles and the behaviors, stressors, motivators, all of that. Well, in completing a student success report, you're able to get a 16-page report that is 15 pages of content, one cover page, that is geared specifically towards the results that come out of a profile, that come out of some questions that are answered. And this 16-page report is going to be able to share some insight, not only for the child, but it gives a section for the parent and for the educator. And the educators are oftentimes, especially right now, not knowing what's going to be happening in the next school year, whether it's going to be in school all the time, some hybrid method, or maybe some just naturally do homeschooling anyway, or there's going to be some form of that. This is important because that parent, and this is where challenges came up last year in the school year, was the parent that normally wasn't the educator, the primary educator, now became an in-home educator. And that was a new role for them, an unexpected role. And I think that setting ourselves up, setting your student and the parent up for success in this coming school year and just in life in general is going to be very important. So in order to reduce the stress and create the best environment possible, it's great to know about those styles and to know what makes everybody tick. And this is something where, when the kids take this, the parent would be there to help them get online and to explain questions and some of the stuff, but let the child take the assessment and then enjoy that report that comes afterwards. So I would give you a code, the assessment would be completed, the report gets compiled together, you get a copy of that, and then you're able to start acting on that. So what I'd like to do is just kind of a special offer is to give you a gift certificate. So for the student success reports, I'd like to offer that out to, it would be $10 off of the report, which would make it $30, and give $20 off of a report debrief combo, which would bring that price down to 120. Now this is, you get the 16-page report, and then I would connect with the parent, the child, or however the parent wanted to do it, to go over that report and to identify and talk about any stuff that's in there and maybe come up with some strategies. And you can do that by connecting with me, and I can get that code to you. You'll get the report, and then we can work on the debrief. And that debrief lasts about a half hour. But just as I've been talking, that the behaviors, the traits, everything that you do is not just for kids. There's a great opportunity for us adults, for parents as well. So there's also an adult profile report that, we're understanding our kids. Well, why not understand ourselves too? So this adult profile report is going to be either a 30 or 31 page, depending on your personality style. It's going to be a personalized report that speaks directly to the individual that took the assessment. And so for this, I can send out a sample report for the child. I can send a sample report for the adult as well. Just reach out to me, let me know that it's something you're interested in, and you can take a look at it. You can see if it's right for you, because I think that's where the most value is going to come out of this, is when the student has a report and the adult, the parent, has a report. And then the child's report, make sure you share that with the educator. Make sure you have that discussion with them so that they can learn and know more about your child. But for the adult, the parent profile report, I'll offer the same, $10 off. That would make the report itself $40. And if you want to do the combo for the report and a debrief, which lasts about close to an hour for the adult report because it's a bit longer, that's going to be $175 total for the report and the debrief. And you can redeem this gift certificate by connecting me directly. You have my email here, to where I can share the code with you, and we can connect to see if this is a way that you want to go. I'll give you that sample report as well. Now, here's my telephone number if you want to reach out to me directly, 719-896-1188. And again, my email address, rparsons@highercallingconsultingllc.com. And I am a certified consultant with the John Maxwell team on the DISC method. So feel free to reach out to me. I want to help you. But if that doesn't happen, I tell you what, I think what you've learned today is valuable. And I thank you for being a part of this, because what I've shared with you today, if you've taken great notes and you apply this, can be a game changer. And I think those reports and a debrief will just help you dive even deeper and to really solidify the value and solidify the benefits that come out of this teaching. So thanks again for your time. Thank you for joining me this morning. And I just look forward to our interaction and you connecting with me, so I can at least share those reports with you and you can make a decision. Thanks again. I wish you and your family all the best. I hope that you're able to go from a family stressed to a family best. And when you do that, share it with other people, let them know how you've done it. And I wish you all the best as you move into what lies before you in the new school year, and just whatever our current situation is going to unfold to be. I wish you the best. Blessings to everybody.